Commissioner Williams. Chair Boaz.
Present. The first order of the business tonight is approval of the July minutes, which were distributed previously. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Hubman and a second by Commissioner Fowler. Call the roll, please.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I noticed one thing,
Okay.
on page 2, third paragraph. I think it says, open instead of close.
Notice that too,
Two,
yeah.
third paragraph,
For public comment.
sorry, line.
I think it's where, Alderman Schweitzer, seconded for closing public comment, but it says opened.
So. Fifth line, middle.
All right. All right, with that amendment, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All right. Same motion, same Commissioner motion, same second. Call the roll, please.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Commissioner Banton.
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Commissioner Fowler.
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia. Commissioner Hubman.
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Commissioner Garmendia is here.
Is that Commissioner Garmendia?
Commissioner
Go-
Garmendia, was that an aye or a present?
Commissioner Garmendia, we had a hard time hearing you. Were you just letting us know you're present? If you're responding, we are not hearing you.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Chair Boaz.
Abstain.
Commissioner Garmendia. Okay,
Shall we ask her if she approves the minutes? That's what I was thinking.
Is she or?
Okay.
We can put her down as not voting.
okay.
We can't communicate.
Okay, so the motion passes with 7 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 non-voting.
Thanks very much. All right, we have one short item on the agenda this evening, as well as some informational items to start the meeting. Scott Ogilvy.
Slide, Dylan. Slide.
This is for approval to conduct a presentation and public hearing at a future meeting for the Transportation Mobility Plan.
So I don't think the clicker is working. Can we? One more. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Scott Ogilvy, program manager here with the Planning and Urban Design Agency. And this very brief presentation is in service of a request to the Planning Commission to allow staff to prepare for providing public notice and a public comment period for a future public meeting where the Planning Commission can consider adoption of the Transportation and Mobility Plan. So I'm just going to go over a few recent, very short summary of recent public engagement and then upcoming actions that the project is taking. So since we've last spoken, we had 3 significant events in July. We had 2 draft plan open houses, and we had 1 bike network workshop. Across those three large events, we had about 250 residents participate on those 3 days. And we've been doing, throughout 2025, we've been doing a variety of public engagement. I just took a few sort of quick snips from a 2025 engagement, public engagement summary to show the activities that have been happening, people who've been participating, and traffic to the project website. Slide, Dylan. And at those three big events, just some primary themes that continue to emerge through the planning process. There's a big emphasis on safety, particularly safety on arterial roadways. There's a strong desire for more connected St. Louis with new bike connections, and for calmer traffic and better pedestrian safety inside of neighborhoods. Those are just kind of high-level themes that we heard at these open houses. Of course, we've documented all of the comments at the open houses and the Bike Network workshop. So that will be in summary form, that'll be part of the plan itself. But it'll also be available to any of you if you're interested in a full appendix that documents all the comments, but won't be technically part of the plan itself. Slide. So what we're doing now is that the full plan, including all the chapters, are in production from the project team and myself. Right now we're writing, editing, putting the maps together, the data, illustrations, and imagery that go in the plan. We are targeting having that process complete by early September, at which time the plan will go to the full core team, which I'll remind everyone includes myself in this office, but also staff from the Board of Public Service and the Streets Department and the Office of the Disabled, who have all been participating throughout the plan. This is a little bit of an extra step because so much of this plan applies not just to our actions here, but actions across city government. So they'll get the plan early September. When they've sort of approved and edited the plan in late September, we will be, we can go to the next slide. At that point, we'll be ready to post the plan online, to open up the public comment period, which will probably be around 30 days. Much like the strategic land use plan update, we'll have a number of channels for public engagement. That'll include obviously online, comments online, as well as in-person comments. We'll have the draft plan available at several locations throughout the city where people can comment in person. We can also take email comment, and we'll promote the fact that the plan is available for public comment. At the same time, would like to offer, if the Planning Commission is interested in this, a little bit more informal work session with the Planning Commission where we can have a conversation about the draft plan. Ideally, we would distribute the plan to the Planning Commission in advance of that, give commissioners some time to page through it and pick out what you may be interested in discussing. Then we can have a workshop that can be a part, of the public comment period. Public comment period will close. And if we kind of stay on track, we could potentially have the draft plan with any edits that we might incorporate from public comment or that commissioners may make in front of the Planning Commission for potential adoption in November of this year. And then, because again, so much of this plan pertains to actions and policies of other city departments, we think the Board of Public Service could adopt it subsequent to the Planning Commission adopting it potentially in November, or excuse me, in December. So that is kind of the roadmap for the upcoming few months to complete this project and adopt the transportation mobility plan into the city's comprehensive plan. I'm happy to entertain any questions on this before we get to the motion.
Let's just go through the list of commissioners, starting with Park Hubbard.
No questions, thank you. I don't have any questions. I've been to a lot of the public hearings and I'm just really grateful for all you've done to make this such an accessible process. And I think it's a great idea to have the workshop with the Planning Commission in October, and I'll be supporting that later in this hearing. Thank you.
Commissioner Bradley? Commissioner Bradley, any questions?
Thank you. Didn't hear you. I have no questions. I've been a part of this process since the beginning. The only comment I just want to say is, great job, Scott. Scott has been the driving force behind all of this, and he's been intimately involved in it. And the plan is where it is, because Scott has really worked very, very hard on it along with others. But great job, Scott. Thanks for all your efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradley. I want to acknowledge everybody's contributions alongside everybody working on just getting all the actual projects out the door at the same time right now. So I appreciate staff contributing from across the city.
Commissioner Fowler?
No comments. I look forward to the presentation and workshop in October. Looking forward to this. Another good step in the right direction.
Commissioner Garmendia? Okay, Commissioner Hubman?
Only one question would be, and I'm sure you're aware of that arterials blueprint that we worked with MoDOT on, and in order to help address exactly these types of issues, number of these corridors on the previous slide are state routes. So I assume you've kind of looked at that and it's a kind of integrated somehow into the overall process.
Yeah, for sure. So as you know, but not everybody may know, Blueprint for Arterials addresses sort of a wide variety of arterial conditions from rural to urban. And I think most of our streets fit in that urban category within that blueprint. And then I think we're able to go a little deeper, a little more detailed within the city's transportation mobility plan. Happy to say that the blueprint is being used in MoDOT projects already as kind of a roadmap for how they scope projects, including some upcoming planning work here in the city of St. Louis. So adopting that plan is already shaping future investments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the intended audience for that document was not you. It was MoDOT staff in order to get them more comfortable with this whole approach. So that's great. I would look forward to participating in a workshop.
Great.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
No questions.
Commissioner Miller? Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I understand the amount of work that's been put into this so far, but I just think that upcoming calendar is pretty aggressive. Last time on the sloop, we took a little bit, probably another month in the period between review of the draft and adoption, and the size and the breadth of this plan seemed like that might not be a bad idea as well. I didn't know if there were other drivers that were driving this calendar, but I just thought that if you spent as much time as you have working on it the last 2 or 3 months, if it went a month longer, I don't see if that would be a deal breaker, but maybe there's something I'm not aware of.
No, there's no sort of hard and fast deadline. I think, the date at which the plan would be before the Planning Commission, I do think is, mostly at the discretion of the Planning Commission, and I think we could take the temperature after that workshop to see if we think November is the appropriate date to present the full plan to the commission for adoption. So this is sort of a proposed schedule, but if it turns out that it needs a little more time, I think we can adapt to that as well.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Don, I think you had a comment you wanted to make?
I do. Scott, you will probably sense what I'm going to make mention of. two things that we put together in this topic is transit and mobility. Just is to have a comprehensive aspect of what we're doing in our 62 square miles. And you made mention in your introduction that there's maps and data that's collected as part of this process. And what I'll just reiterate, one of the things that I think is most helpful and informative about an urban area that has walkability, but also has transit, roads and services is the mapping and the data. And one of the ones that's been key to me is we have data by, I think it's census block group, on the percentage of that population in that block group having access to automobiles. And that's a key thing to see in our 62 square miles of urban area. So appreciate that's been incorporated in the decision-making and the planning, and look forward to seeing it.
And I don't have any questions. Look forward to the workshop and look forward to seeing the plan.
Banton?
Oh.
Did Banton, did he speak?
Oh, I don't think he's,
Was he not here?
Commissioner Matt.
You're skipping me, Tracy?
I apologize, Jake. I did not remember that you were here. I missed you. I missed you.
No, that's okay. I actually don't have any questions. I just look forward to digging into it more when we get to do the workshop. So
Great, thank you. All right. With that, Scott, would you like to review the motion you?
Sure.
needed?
Next slide. So the motion would be that the Planning Commission approves providing public notice for and conducting a presentation and public hearing to consider the adoption of the updated Transportation Mobility Plan, the City's St. Louis Comprehensive Plan, at a future Planning Commission meeting to be later determined.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Previous role.
All right. I would.
I don't think you want to do that. You abstained.
Yeah.
Objection.
She didn't got that.
I didn't even hear that request.
Right. And she wasn't here yet.
So who moved, please?
It was Commissioner.
Schweitzer.
And then second.
Jorgensen.
Bradley called for previous role. I objected so that I could vote.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Banton,
aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Fowler,
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubman,
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
and Chair Boaz.
Aye.
And motion passes with all present voting aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
Very much. All right, next we have, an update on neighborhood planning efforts.
Well, good evening, Chair, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I am Jonathan Roper with the City of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency. And tonight we're going to hear from the neighborhood planning areas. Next slide, please. Just going to give you a quick overview of where we are and neighborhood planning first, and then we'll get into presentations by 3 consultants. Neighborhood planning, our mission is just to create and adopt neighborhood plans with residents, community members, departments for all 79 neighborhoods. Currently, we have different plan areas where the Planning Commission adopted different areas that we would do neighborhood planning with residents for. Currently, we are in phase 1, which started around 2024 last year, and we're going to wrap up end of this year, maybe goes into 2026 just a little bit. And then phase 2, which is also actually getting just underway now as well. Our organization, we have a PDA staff planner with a consultant team. So you'll hear from 3 of the teams tonight, along with different city departments that are also involved along the way as well. Next slide. And for tonight, we have plan areas 1, which is the Ville, Greaterville, Kingsway East, and red. Plan area 2, which is Walnut Park East, Walnut Park West, and Mark Twain neighborhood in yellow. And plan area 3 is Beta and North Point. Next slide, please. And with that said, we're going to hear from the Plan Area 1 consultants from Lamar Johnson Collaborative as the lead firm. So we're going to hear from them. So,
And Jonathan, would you just introduce what level of content and communication they're going to provide today?
oh, yes. So you'll hear from the engagement that they have been doing with different residents, community meetings, their engagement with the ambassadors, also the different themes that has been resonating in the neighborhoods, along with different, maybe some focus areas about where they are focusing, just different efforts, building upon that early engagement to really start defining more of what residents and community members want to see more of.
So it's not a real deep dive, it's those big picture.
No, no. So this is our mid level update. There's no action to be requested at this time. After this point, I would say we would request in the near future at least a as Scott did similarly tonight with the transportation mobility plan, and a request for public hearing consideration at a future date, but not tonight. So we're not looking at that tonight, but that's what you could look forward to in the future. And actually, while we're getting set up on that end, I will note two events coming up. One's the build day, actually, I'm sorry, 3 events coming up. One's this Saturday for Plan Area 3. It's one of our pop-ups in Vivian Astra Park. So we do pop-ups in the neighborhoods, and tell me when you're ready to, Dylan. So we do pop-ups in the park and the neighborhood to really imagine with community, what's possible, build encouragement and confidence. We're having another pop-up, and we're going to send out this information to you later on too. August the 23rd, so 2 Saturdays from now in the Greaterville, Kingsway East area. So we'll have 2 pop-up demonstrations. Very excited for that. And then finally, the Trap Run, which is taking place on MLK at Whittier on, I believe it's Saturday, September 6th as well. So different neighborhood events that we'll follow up with you. But I think we're ready to go. So with that, Hallie and Leslie, I'll give it over to you.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Thank you, Plan Commissioners, for having us today. My name is Leslie Roth. I'm a principal of Lamar Johnson Collaborative. I lead our urban design, urban planning, and landscape architecture studio. And I'm joined by my colleague, Hallie Nolan, who is an associate and project manager for Planning Area 1, also with Lamar Johnson Collaborative. Today, we're going to share with you a quick overview of the progress that we've made towards creating a neighborhood plan for the Ville, Greaterville, and Kingsway East. Next slide, please. As you know, the project boundary of Planning Area 1 is Vandeventer, Natural Bridge, MLK, and Kings Highway. This incorporates 3 neighborhoods of the Ville, Greaterville, and Kingsway East. This is in North St. Louis. As we began this process, we convened a number of stakeholders and residents into groups that have met over a dozen times during the course of this project. Those groups are neighborhood planning, the Neighborhood Planning Committee, topic area working groups, and neighborhood ambassadors. Through a robust public engagement process, we began to create a community vision, which is aspirational and our guiding North Star for the entirety of this process. The vision statement reads, "We envision a resilient, connected community where Black heritage lives on through thriving institutions, vibrant spaces, and creative purpose-built places that honor generations of local leaders who shape this neighborhood." Next slide, please. The project schedule is approximately 12 months. We are currently in phase 4 and have completed the existing conditions study, modeling and scenario planning with development scenarios. We'll share a summary of both of those deliverables with you today. And we've just begun phase 4, which is revising and developing the implementation matrix as well as the draft neighborhood plan. The last 2 phases include a document review by stakeholders, residents, and other elected appointed officials, agencies, departments within the city, and lastly, adoption in phase 6. Public engagement, as I mentioned, is very robust. We do not consider this a phase. This is a part of the integrated part of the process that has run from phase 1 and will continue on through phase 6 when the real work starts of implementation. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the existing conditions report. This is also available on the project website and with a link to the full document. The existing conditions report really was created as a foundational tool to help give us an understanding of the data that was available to analyze, as well as the conditions on the ground in the 3 neighborhoods. This information gave us a snapshot of where we are today, and it also gave us an understanding of what decisions had been made in the past through analysis and summarization of previous plans and reports. This report continues to be a reference for the phase of the project that we're in and will influence future phases as well. The document layout is structured as topic areas. You can see here in this example, in this table of contents diagram that is within the report, that the structure is meant to be user-friendly and able to be referenced quickly. These thematic key topic areas have been carried through the entirety of the process and have also helped us structure working groups around each one of these key topic areas to develop goals, vision, objectives, strategies, and implementation and action items. The first topic area in the existing conditions is housing. The existing conditions analyzed a variety of material and data sets related to housing, including housing stock, tenure, vacancy, age, and affordability. This chapter also looked at demographics of the neighborhood, looking backwards from the past and also projecting into the future. We reviewed housing conditions and economic mobility. And a few of the takeaways from this is that planning area residents seem to be more cost burdened with housing than other areas of the city. This is one of our challenges, one of the challenges that revealed itself during the existing conditions report that then was discussed in our working groups and with the neighborhood planning committee to create recommendations to resolve these challenges. Some of the data points on this slide just give you an example of how the material was presented, as well as some of the data sets that were reviewed. Next slide. The next topic area was transportation and mobility. This chapter assessed everything from street connectivity, sidewalk condition, pedestrian and bike infrastructure, transit access, and safety. Some of the key takeaways from this chapter included high crash areas, continuity of sidewalks, and transit frequency. This topic area, as well as all of the topic areas in the existing conditions report, created the recommendations that that you'll see later in the development scenarios, but they were foundational to understanding what the challenges were and being able to define those and quantify those with data analysis. The next topic area was zoning and land use. In this chapter, we looked at existing land use and the regulatory environment in the 3 neighborhoods. The way that we analyzed this was in coordination with the new St. Louis Land Use Plan, and some of the key findings were that the primary land use was residential, with commercial uses generally oriented around corridors. The new land use plan also echoed these findings. Institutional uses were distributed throughout the planning area, and you'll see later in this, we also reviewed civic, culture, and cultural assets, among other community assets. Community assets that were reviewed included the topic areas that you see here with healthcare and food access, parks and open space, public facilities. We also looked at art, cultural, and civic institutions such as libraries. We also looked at a variety of social infrastructure data points. And as most of you know, the area is very rich in cultural assets, and this was of particular interest and importance to both the Neighborhood Planning Commission and participants of the working groups. The next topic area was economic development, and this chapter looked at employment trends, business activity, workforce development, and commercial vitality. A few of the takeaways from this that we found interesting is that there was quite a bit of retail and commercial leakage out of the neighborhood. Many residents that we talked to said that they were leaving their neighborhood for necessary services like access to pharmacies and grocery. This was also important to understand in making the key recommendations for the development scenarios. The next topic was arts, culture, and historic preservation. Not only did we look at the location and distribution of these sites, but we also intentionally wanted to connect to landmarks and destinations within the community and coordinate in coordination with the MLK Dream Boulevard team to make sure that we were considering known assets like the Chuck Berry House, Sarah Lou Cafe, Shelley B. Kramer House, and Homer G. Phillips. Preservation and adaptive reuse of some of these facilities was also prioritized in the recommendations. The next topic area was architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design. In this chapter, we looked at architectural characteristics of all types of buildings, not just residential, but also including historic buildings, mixed-use buildings, institutional buildings, schools, etc. We also looked at the condition and location of streetscapes and open space. This area is really quite a tight-knit, has quite a tight-knit block structure, walkable blocks. There are some definite neighborhood patterns that reveal themselves through our analysis. And it really has a structure that lends itself to a variety of development opportunities. However, public space and the development of gathering areas and open space is lower than average for the city. And residential areas are clustered into generally a form of neighborhood that lends itself to similar age groups and tenure in different parts of the neighborhood. There are a variety of residential typologies as well. So at the core of this entire process and all of its recommendations is co-authorship of the design process with community. Our outreach and communication strategy, as I mentioned, is not a phase in this project. It is something that is continuous, integrated, and culturally responsive to residents of these three neighborhoods. The data points that we put on this slide, we take a lot of pride in. We have been very intentional about our outreach strategy. The outreach strategy is both in person and virtual. We have had some hybrid meetings as well, but we realize that touch points, building trust, and establishing relationships on the ground by meeting people where they are is the best way to get people involved with the process and help folks to understand, build capacity and help folks understand how they can get involved and why this should be empowering to them. We're happy to announce that over $10,000 of stipends are being administered through the course of this project. This is in the form of gift certificates, of paying people for sharing their lived experience during focus groups, including a living wage for the 15 neighborhood ambassadors that have participated in this process from the beginning. We've had 25 neighborhood planning committee and working group meetings. As I mentioned, the neighborhood planning committee is meeting monthly and working groups are as well by topic area. Over 3,000 people in the neighborhood, the total population is about 8,000, have been contacted or connected to the planning process. Some of the tools that we've used for public engagement have included door knocking, canvassing, tabling at events. We've hosted 3 public workshops for a total of almost 200 participants. We issue a monthly newsletter. This is both print and online, as well as a website that is updated every month with news and happenings about not only this planning process, but other events in the neighborhood to make sure that we are coordinating with other events and organizations within each of the 3 neighborhoods. The next deliverable for this process is called development scenario planning. This is sub-area planning that takes the existing condition recommendations and puts them on the ground. The key recommendations for this particular chapter were developed through a series of conversations with the NPC, the neighborhood ambassadors, as well as tested in a public workshop. The areas that were chosen for the sub-area planning document were actually selected by residents. They were voted on and vetted as the most important areas that we should look at in the neighborhood. This is a place-based design process. So all of these ideas are very specific to the 3 neighborhoods. We know that there are different conditions in the Ville, Greaterville, and Kingsway East, and the recommendations are responsive to those specific conditions. The neighborhood plan, the development scenarios that you'll see presented in this document look at archetypal ideas around how the neighborhood can grow and create a foundation for a growth framework that is both sustainable and future focused. Next slide. To accompany the development scenarios, we began to develop an implementation matrix, which puts each one of the key recommendations into a matrix that is time sensitive. It identifies potential costs and as well as partners for this. There are a number of policy and funding tools that would also support the implementation of many of the key recommendations. The key recommendations were developed by topic area, and we realized that there is a lot of overlap and intersectionality between these topic areas. As we move into the draft plan, that resolution is programmed into our scope of work. We want to make sure that where there is overlap or where there is integration that needs to happen or interdependence on other key recommendations, that we are using those tools and resources efficiently. And the key recommendations are written collaboratively and cooperatively. Next slide. So moving into the sub-area planning concepts. These 4 sub-areas that you see on the left-hand side of your screen are scalable and replicable ideas that are distributed throughout the neighborhood. The 4 types were identified by residents in our workshops and the Neighborhood Planning Committee as the most important ideas that were the formation of the key recommendations that they thought were the most important ideas to focus growth and development in the neighborhood. The Type 1 commercial corridor are located in a coordination with the SLOOP and are located on generally the boundaries of the neighborhood. The resilience and innovation areas, and we'll get into each one of these, are sprinkled through the neighborhood, but really look at areas that need the most, that have opportunity to have the most impact on open space as well as urban agriculture and other ideas to preserve outdoor space. As I mentioned in the existing conditions, through our data analysis, we realized that there was a desire to have more open space. The third type is a neighborhood node. These are generally focused along commercial corridors and center retail and commercial development. And lastly, institutional campus, which are sprinkled throughout the neighborhood and coordinate with other historic and cultural assets. This is an example of type 1, which is a commercial corridor. For each one of these development scenarios, we identified opportunities for growth and development, including infill sites, opportunities for placemaking at corners, as well as open space and landscape architecture. The resilience and innovation typology looks at opportunities for not only mixed use, but model urban agriculture, outdoor space, and park and gathering space in the neighborhoods. We used a model of an eco-block to show how ecological systems, social systems, and physical systems can come together in an urban environment. And the other note that I wanted to make about the resilience and innovation type 2 is that this is a transitional development scenario where there are areas in the neighborhood that have opportunity for more construction or infill development. This can also be used as a transition before that development happens. The neighborhood node are generally located in areas that are more dense with existing buildings and look at opportunities for placemaking, additional mixed-use development, roadway and pedestrian infrastructure that creates a connected, walkable community. And lastly, the institutional campus looks at special areas within the community that are ripe for adaptive reuse that can connect to schools or other cultural landmarks.
And so you've heard Leslie mention that we've been coordinating with the MLK Cultural Corridor team, Dream Boulevard, with our neighborhood plan, as we're the lead consultant for both. We have some main shared priorities between these two projects, including supporting small business, enhancing mobility and streetscapes, and preserving and celebrating the cultural heritage of the area as a form of economic development and attracting visitors. And so we're calling out the MLK Cultural Corridor here as a part of this section, because it's really one of the key corridors in early implementation and activation that we see in the community. And so we move into placemaking as a strategic approach to creating visible improvements block by block, and laying the groundwork really for that sustainable and long-term investment for private dollars. So we did this as a part of one of our workshops where we had residents place specific placemaking typologies or elements that they'd like to see in these sub areas. We're just going to summarize quickly what some of those main priorities are. So for commercial corridor and specifically along Natural Bridge, the community members really prioritize bus stops, improve storefronts as key opportunities, and then some more long-term strategies include integrating public art, some more vertical gateway signage, and then improved lighting, pedestrian scale lighting. For placemaking type 2, for resilience and innovation, the community really identified parks, green infrastructure, gardens, always public art, some more lighting, walking paths, really the elements that focus on resilience and the open and green space. Some future placemaking could also include stormwater features, building off of that urban agriculture, and spaces focused on health and wellness. So for placemaking type 3, the neighborhood node, the community really emphasized street safety, especially at this intersection of Euclid and St. Louis Ave. They really wanted to see more places to gather in this area and some more small business support, neighborhood serving retail specifically. So some placemaking here that we've discussed is some community branding, and improving some safe crossings, creating event spaces, and then of course, public art, more signage, lighting, seating, and then they've also identified a number of items of placemaking that they'd like to see in W.C. Handy Park. So next, for type 4 institutional campus, residents really saw this as a community commons that focuses on Sumner, Tandy, and other nearby civic anchors. So they really see this as a shared space for education, arts, and pride of place. The long-term vision includes integrating murals, wayfinding, more public art, and some more gateways and sense of arrival to really create that campus feel. They really want to create, strengthen that connection between civic institutions and everyday life. There we go. So as Jonathan mentioned, we have our pop-up demonstrations coming up very soon here on August 23rd. We have two, one in the morning and one in the afternoon at two different locations. These are really some short-term interventions that have been designed with community input to test those long-term ideas that we heard from them over the course of this process. These events help us experiment some of those design interventions, gather that real-time feedback from community, and learn how to better activate those public spaces with art and culture and civic pride. So the first site is Euclid and St. Louis Ave. This really has a mobility and wellness focus, connected with Fit and Food Connection and those mobility improvements at St. Louis Ave and Euclid. This pop-up will feature some sidewalk activations, introducing some safe crossings and mid-block crossings, and also some wellness activities and some local farmers for sort of like a farmer's market experience. So it's really about reclaiming that public space, improving safety, and supporting walkable connections. And our second site is Cottage Ave in Sumner. This is really a civic pride sort of opportunity here to build on the idea of a community campus. So this demonstration focuses on that civic pride, culture, and placekeeping, really tying together the history, education, and future opportunity of this area and the buildings around it and the other community services and anchors. So we're using placemaking here to strengthen the role of that area as a central anchor for the neighborhood, because we have heard that time and time again in almost every opportunity. So together, these build days will begin to show us what's possible and build momentum and capacity within the community. And they're just the beginning. So I'll pass it back to Leslie to walk us through what's next.
Thanks, Hallie. So through the fall, we will be working on, after the placemaking demonstrations, we will be continuing to work on the draft plan. As Jonathan mentioned, there's a few events coming up for the Ville placemaking, and Trap Run is September 6th. We have our next MPC meeting. We have one right before the build day and one right after. And then we will begin circulating the draft plan. There will be another public workshop. You all will get to take a look at it in a working group and workshop. And then we will move through the adoption process. That concludes our presentation. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And actually, I will ask if we hold off on questions for a moment and then proceed right to plan area 2, just because we have some time crunch with team members. So
Awesome.
We'll have time for
Thank
questions
you.
after.
yes.
Okay, can you all see this?
Not yet, now
yes, we
yes.
can.
Yes, okay, great. My name is Catherine Homaker. I am an associate director with PGAV. We are the lead consulting firm for Plan Area 2. So I'm gonna bust through this pretty fast for you all. Jonathan gave a little bit of background, but Plan Area 2 is Walnut Park West, Walnut Park East, and Mark Twain at the northern, almost the northern point of the city. It is one of the entrances at the north side from Highway 70. It's a lot of people, that's a lot of people's access point to these neighborhoods. West Florissant is that eastern border. I wish we had a nice square neighborhood like Plan Area 1, but sadly we have a funny little shape to work with here. So these 3 adjacent neighborhoods are similar in some ways and really different in others. Mark Twain has a lot of industrial development at its southern point. They were developed over time, you know, kind of going further north as the city developed. And so the housing stock gets newer and newer as you get into Walnut Park East and Walnut Park West. The street design shifts as well to reflect that kind of different stage of development. It directly abuts the city of Jennings, so in St. Louis County, and kind of between 2,500 and 3,200 residents per neighborhood. This is an existing land use map. So you can see that this area, other than the Mark Twain industrial at the very bottom of this map, is overwhelmingly residential. So there is a mix of residential in terms of units types, but it is overwhelmingly residential. There's a couple of commercial nodes adjacent to Highway 70. There's West Florissant, which is kind of a mixed use corridor on its own. But residential is certainly the thing in these neighborhoods that people talk about the most. We did all kinds of different data collection and mapping as part of the existing conditions process. So this is just some snapshots of a few different ones. There's a lot of flooding concerns in these neighborhoods. And so we did a lot of analysis into impacts of recent floods, particularly in 2022, and other MSD concerns. We hear a lot about that from residents. That's something we kind of dug deep into as part of existing conditions, thinking about, you know, a lot of those same indicators that Leslie talked through in Plan Area 1 to think through kind of what is our baseline for this neighborhood. This neighborhood had a planning effort in 2001, and so they have some familiarity with planning, and some of those residents are still involved in our planning process today. But certainly getting the data updated was a big piece of this beginning part of the process. In terms of engagement, so we have done a whole slew of different engagement events. We've done topic-based focus groups. We've done a couple different pop-ups. We've had surveys. We've got neighborhood ambassadors. I was just going to highlight a few that I thought were kind of interesting. We had a fun kickoff event at the O'Fallon Park Rec Center, where we had a couple hundred people come, and it was basically a party to get people excited. There's Jonathan's face about the planning effort, and get people excited about what this was going to mean in terms of potential for their community. We also did a pop-up at Carter Park where we did a couple pop-ups, one at Carter Park and one at the Walnut Park Library on Election Day, to get people kind of thinking about what could be in terms of placemaking, in terms of traffic calming, kind of reimagining how they use their public spaces. And then another fun thing we did with our neighborhood planning committee is that we took them on a bus tour focused on implementation. So our neighborhood planning committee is very interested in thinking about how to mobilize after the planning effort is done. And so we've spent a lot of time talking to them about different mechanisms for implementation. And so we took them on a bus tour where we visited the Vanderventer CDC to hear about some of the work they've been doing with Great Rivers Greenway. We went to Dutchtown and talked to the St. Louis Art Place Initiative about the residential investment that organization has been able to make happen. And then we met with the Dutchtown South Community Corporation Resident Implementation Committee for lunch to talk about how those residents kind of are in the future stage of what our NPC could be, to think about how they've been able to make projects happen and what role they serve. So that was a really exciting part of the project, and our NPC was really excited to participate as well. Some high level themes, we have a framework of vision, goals, strategies, and then implementation. These are just some of the themes that we've talked through with residents that were important and continue to come up. People are really concerned with reducing residential vacancy. That is probably the single biggest thing they talk about. We needed to understand where the vacancy exists, think about new uses for some of those parcels. Again, flooding is a big component, and so there isn't an ideal new use for a lot of the parcels in this area because they do have a lot of flooding concerns. And so thinking about how to consider stormwater maintenance, consider green spaces that would be more environmentally resilient, things like that. There's also a really strong desire to activate some of the empty school buildings in the neighborhood and some of the other spaces. So green space that could be, activated with community events and programming, things like that. They have a pretty significant city park in there in the neighborhood. And so figuring out how to better activate that and work with recreation to do so. There's kind of a continued fear of further decline and disinvestment. One of the things about this area is that a lot of people do remember the planning process from 20 years ago. And so they have a little bit of kind of, nerves about what this planning process could do differently. There's a desire for more investment in safe transportation options. So coordination with the Future West Florissant multimodal project is going to be a major piece of this, identifying other potential improvements within the neighborhood street network, focusing on transit, thinking about how to create a continued sense of community and pride. A lot of long-term residents in this area have it, but there's sort of a sense that maybe that's going away. And again, that real interest in implementation and being part of the solution that I mentioned. So I think that's it. What's coming up on our end is that we're drafting the plan now. So the city's going to get that in a couple of weeks. They'll do their internal review, spread it around all the department heads, and then we'll have our final open house in the fall, have the public hearing, and tentatively come to you all in December. So that's the plan. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Catherine. And next up, we have Justin and Dan from Enterboro for Plan Area 3.
Thanks, Jonathan. Really nice to see everyone. Also want to say it's really great to see what's cooking in Plan Areas 1 and 2. Just have some really cool ideas we might need to borrow. Catherine, I love that idea of the implementation tour. That's a really great thing that I think our committee would benefit from a lot too. Next time we're in town, maybe we should all go out for a beer and I'll share PDA consultant stories. But in the meantime, we're going to show you some of what's cooking in Plan Area 3. By the way, I'm Dan Dioka. I'm a principal and co-founder of Interboro, and we're leading Plan Area 3. I'm going to turn it over to Justin Paul Ware, who's going to take you through what we've been up to.
Good evening, all. As Dan mentioned, I'm Justin Paul Ware, also with Interborough Partners. Some quick goals just to set what we're trying to go through. Some introduction, meeting our team, context and positioning, a little overview of our existing conditions and market analysis so far, update on where we are at in the process, update on community engagement, updates on the plan development so far, and next steps. So you've already heard a little bit from Dan and myself, and we also have here Jessica Payne from Key Strategic Group on the call with us, who is leading the community engagement component of the work. As well, we have Code Studio that will be supporting on the zoning and implementation, and some other team members here that you probably won't meet today. As you've seen with the other plan areas and the introduction that Jonathan gave, Plan Area 3 is Baden and North Point. We're at the very northern tip of the city, just touching along West Florissant with Plan Area 2, but really segregated from a lot of the city by Cavalry Cemetery, but surrounded by Florissant, Goodfellow, Riverview, and Hall Streets, and the industrial area leading to the river. So for our existing conditions, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, we have done, a variety of data analysis and gathering of information, both from a statistical perspective and GIS and mapping perspective. We've looked at the relationship of the neighborhood to other neighborhoods in the city and other parts of the city. So looking at the city scales as a starting point and comparing, sharing a lot of the similar conditions with much of North City, of course. And then going through at the neighborhood scale, the environmental challenges. As with Plan Area 2, flooding is a real concern for a lot of the area in the neighborhood. And so that's what you're seeing here with the MSD problem areas, the areas that were affected by flooding in 2022 as well. And the hydrological flow routes that are mirroring the previous placement of creeks and rivers and streams in the neighborhood that has continued to heavily affect residents. But as well, we've got issues of heat islands. We've got limited tree coverage in certain areas, and access to parks is actually a real challenge for parts of the neighborhood as well, despite being highly residential. So I won't go through in great detail, but we've looked at everything from other projects and the anchors in the neighborhoods, connectivity, traffic crashes, vacancy, which is one of the key issues, of course, in the neighborhood that we're also considering, and then of course looking at the zoning and land use. In response to the vacancy, we actually have been developing a vacancy strategy that kind of analyzes the various typologies of ways that we could respond and looks at those various conditions. So this is really a focus of our existing conditions, and the analysis has really led us to a selection of responses. In this case, identifying parcels, vacant parcels for each of these solutions. And then in addition to all of that, we have the market analysis, and may I'll turn it over to Jessica to share a couple of high-level points from that.
Thanks, Justin. We see a lot of strengths in Baden and North Point. They're very historic neighborhoods. They're very proud of their culture and their heritage and maintaining that. There's also some really, really strong pockets of home ownership, some of the highest levels in the city in parts of northern parts of North Point and Baden, and also some parts of the neighborhoods that have very low home ownership rates and lower home values. So it's a real mix of housing types and affordability and just status in the neighborhood, which does present a little bit of a challenge. It's also a really strategic location, close to transportation, freight routes, all of that. There is some projected consumer spending growth that we've seen in the data, as well as starting to see increases in home values and overall residential sales, sort of in line with trends with that we're seeing in the region. We've seen home sales as high as $185,000 last year, but also as low as $1,200. So again, that mix of very vacant areas where the housing really needs a lot of updates to some really well-established and well-maintained single-family homes that are finally starting to see some increase in property value there and sales value. Weaknesses, again, population decline and aging. The population here is significantly older than the average of St. Louis. Again, below average home values, a pretty weak commercial market. Most of the demands are met outside of the footprint in pretty much all categories. High vacancy levels, especially in Baden. And then one of the biggest barriers that we see is this perception of safety and quality of life barriers for the area. That said, there are a lot of opportunities that we have seen in the data and just in our conversations with residents and NPC members. There is an uptick in housing redevelopment and infill and plenty of opportunities to continue that, including the redevelopment of Baden School, which we're very excited about, into new senior housing. There's a whole lot of potential for the business district revitalization. There's a lot of energy around that, a lot of desire for that, and a lot of people really interested in making that happen. There's a lot of great opportunities for workforce and education alignment. There's some really high-paying jobs located in the neighborhoods. They're just not going to residents right now. And so there's some opportunities to change that. There is some more opportunity to, again, capture some of that leakage, especially related to food, home goods, and transportation spending. There's also a really exciting opportunity to make Baden and North Point a destination, spill over from the new zoo expansion in North County. It's very close and an easy drive down Broadway. And it's also very close access to the Riverfront Trail and other amenities in the GRG trail system. And then, of course, a big opportunity for improving those community assets and the quality of life that residents have been asking for.
Thanks, Jessica. And then to get to our community engagement, which has been a critical part of the work that we've been doing so far. This is kind of an overview of what we've done so far, including our workshops, our public workshops, and our NPC meetings, the ambassadors that we've hired, the newsletters that we've released, the thematic bus tours that we've held, one around sustainability and resilience, one around vacancy, and one around transportation and mobility, 2 youth pop-ups, a traffic calming pop-up demonstration, the visioning survey that we've conducted, a neighborhood-wide or planning area-wide sign campaign that we launched and remains active, and then a couple of walking tours along the corridors, the business corridors in the neighborhood. So throughout all that engagement, one of the keys that we've had is that there's a lot of, I would say, capacity building required in sort of understanding what neighborhood planning means and what it is and what it can mean for residents and community members. So a lot of it has been around introducing these ideas and these topics and building that capacity and understanding. So we've done that through a variety of methods. One of them, of course, is our public workshops, which we've had a number of. Actually, the public workshops have been pretty successful. So we've added additional ones because we keep encountering new faces along the way that want to be involved in the process. So we've kind of continued that trajectory along. And then we have our dedicated neighborhood planning committee, which we meet with monthly, of course. And then our sign campaign, which I mentioned, where we have selected a number of sites throughout the neighborhood, vacant lots. Again, this is a response to vacancy being an issue, but also a response to the fact that a lot of people didn't, in the first couple of months that we were doing the work, know what we were doing or understand what we were doing, or couldn't come to the table and join us for a public workshop. So we wanted to take some of the activities that we often do at the table and bring them out into the neighborhood. So we designed this with the idea of kind of taking sticky notes and spreading them throughout the neighborhood to get folks thinking about what the different parcels that are currently vacant could be used for, or how they might be re-envisioned in the future. Also looking at their land use, thinking about what was there in the past. And so these are up around the neighborhoods, and we have a survey alongside, so folks could respond to what they wanted to see in each space. Then we had our walking tours, and we developed these brochures that show the kind of current conditions, and then a number of ideas and images of what might be possible in each of them. And so we get handed these out to each of the participants and went around the neighborhoods, and we kind of treated this as well as an opportunity to meet with and engage with folks and businesses where they were at. So we talked to quite a few folks that weren't able to attend any of our other events just by walking into their shop and saying hi along this way. And so it was a really good event for ambassadors, neighborhood planning committee members, members of the public, and us to all engage with business owners that maybe lived outside the neighborhood, and also a lot of their patrons were living outside the neighborhood, but of course are still key stakeholders. Then we have the traffic calming pop-up demonstration that we did in Baden on North Broadway, adjacent to Hickey Park. One of the things that we heard over and over and over is that this Hickey Park, which is one of the key neighborhood assets, is really difficult to access because North Broadway is such a busy street and there aren't safe crossings. And so there were a lot of families and parents that said that they live just across North Broadway. They would never send their kids to Hickey Park because they didn't feel they could get there safely and assured that they could cross the street safely. And so one of the really important assets of the neighborhood is being cut off. So we looked at how to improve that safety. And so, first of all, of course, we also did an analysis of the behavior at that intersection. And so just seeing how few people actually come to a full stop there, or how many are running just through the light, the flashing red light or the light, depending on the day. And then how many of those that were not stopping were using the the bike lane or the parking lane to pass, again, making it very unsafe. So we got out there early in the morning on a Saturday and painted a temporary crosswalk. And then we ensured that there was additional signage and cones all throughout the event. And we had a party in the park to give folks a reason to cross the street, but also made it a lot more safe and comfortable to do so. And so I think the event was a real success, and we had a lot of great response from folks, and they said, well, why don't we have these up and down Broadway? We need more of these. And so I think this was a great test of this case, and an important step in the process. As I mentioned as well, we have a number of thematic bus tours where we went around the neighborhood and looked at a lot of these issues with both members of the community, but also stakeholders from the city. So different agencies and department heads came and participated as well. We have our newsletter that we've had out. We have our digital outreach. We have the website, our social media, and have been spreading the word and engaging with folks digitally as well as in person. I won't spend any real time on here, but throughout the process, we've always tried to summarize what we've heard so far and then put that back out in social media, in newsletter, in meetings, so that folks can see what other people are saying and respond to it, agree, disagree, or if it sparks other ideas. For the plan, going through all of the different steps, we have our equity statement, where we've always tried to do is draw the relationships between the values that have come up through the process and how they can be really instrumental in guiding the decision-making of the plan itself and then the outcomes that might result. We have our vision that has come together throughout the process, and some of the key priorities. One of the things that really stood out to me is when we first reviewed this with the community, two of the pieces that weren't super specifically called out were both education and economic development. We talked about thriving and resilience, and we talked about a lot of different things, but those were two things that were like, we got to add those in. So, that really came out as a priority through that process. And then in the development of the goals and strategies, we started out at this kind of level of the 6 core topics that we've been using, similar to Plan Area 1 that was mentioned. And what we wanted to do was really draw the connection between what we were hearing and then the goal that we might develop in response, and then a series of strategies. So a couple of just examples here, one from housing and one from economic development, where we heard that speculative neglect and vacant buildings and were lowering community morale. And so the goal became to rehabilitate vacant buildings and encourage ownership. and then starting to develop a list of strategies that can be used to respond. So always kind of carrying that through line of what we heard during engagement to what the strategies that are being implemented in the plan look like. Same for the other core topics, and similar process there. We've also had a lot of conversations and events around placemaking and the selection of opportunity sites, making sure that all along the way, that when we're deciding to do an event like the Hickey Park traffic calming, it's in direct response to something we heard at the table that was a priority for the community. So every time we thought about focusing on a certain site for an event or an area of the neighborhood for the plan, we then bring that back to the community and say and ask questions about which are the priority areas and what they would want to see in each of them. And that has now translated very directly into the development of those goals and strategies in a spatial sense. So including the analysis from the existing conditions as a reference point, and then starting to include those identified sites and where these goals and strategies might be implemented in reality. And a couple of, apologize, the lights are going out because of the environmental restrictions, but I'm in the dark. So here's just some quick design concepts that I'll share with you, because it's one of the things we're really excited about right now and that are going to be highlighted in some of our upcoming events. So this is the Hickey Park concept, again, in response to some of the flooding issues, but also some of the public space issues that have come up in the process. And so, looking at how the design of the park itself could be improved to both accommodate the social needs of the community and the sustainability and resilience needs of the community. And so always making sure that when we're having one of those events, we're also bringing some of these ideas to the event to share those with community members and get their feedback. We also just had an event, a pop-up at Baden Fest in Dickman Park last weekend. And here we were looking at one of the key areas of the neighborhood that is, again, both a public space, but also an area affected by flooding, and bringing forward a design concept that brings together a lot of the different ideas and projects that have been proposed and developed by community members, by the neighborhood association, by various city agencies and departments over many, many years. And so really trying to tie all those together, and had a great conversation with all of those stakeholders earlier this week, and excited to then also take it to the MPC meeting this Thursday to talk about it further. We also have an event this Saturday in Vivian Astra Park in North Point that Jonathan mentioned. And so we're coming to the table with some design concepts in relation to the 2 elementary schools in North Point, looking at how to improve the placemaking around these areas that are youth-focused areas in the neighborhood. And so, again, I won't spend a ton of time going through the ideas, but just to show you the type of work that we're doing there, and that we're going to be out in the park on Saturday to share those ideas. And then one of the next areas of focus is one of the gateways to the city and the neighborhood at Halls Ferry Circle. We're the confluence of major streets in the neighborhood and an entry point to the city. So this is another area of focus that we're looking at. So as I mentioned, we've got a lot of events coming up. We've got our NPC meeting on Thursday. We've got the park event on Saturday. We're doing a youth pop-up at one of our community organization partners event on Sunday. And then we're now planning a second traffic calming pop-up demonstration and a final bus tour in September. In conclusion, our next steps were refining these vision, goals, and strategies, continuing to hold stakeholder conversations around all of these ideas, to develop and refine our design and placemaking concepts, to select and further develop the catalytic projects that will be highlighted in our plan, and to carry this into the implementation matrix that we're in the process of developing, and to draft and finalize those plans and come back to you for adoption, but of course, keeping you up to date on the process throughout. So please stay updated on our process until we're back at the table to share with you updates, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Justin, and we'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Got questions? All right, let's start with Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
I guess I do have one quick question, but it might not be a quick answer, and I understand that. Just I am very first impressed by all of the different ways you all have done the community engagement. I really feel like you all are being intentional and meeting people where they are. I love that you all are engaging in events, community events that have already been planned by community. So you showing up with them, I think is that's always good. And then putting together additional events outside of that as well, just engaging them outside of maybe their comfort zone. You just never know how people show up. So appreciative of that, just curious. And again, it might not be a quick answer, but I would love to know how the impact of the May 16th tornado and how that has affected any community engagement. If any way, has it boosted it maybe? Or did you notice that it had any pushback or pullback that we can maybe identify some gaps that we can try to fill in?
Yeah, thank you for that question about the May 16th tornado. So of the three planning areas, planning area 1 was the most impacted. Actually, the other two, not to say they were not, but just if you look at even the map over here, the tornado impact zone, it only cuts a corner, Mark Twain, which is planning area 2, and it does run north towards the riverfront and Little Baden. But so it's really been plan area 1. The last 2 neighborhood planning committee meetings, so the June and July, just right after the tornado, the mayor's office and the recovery efforts did join us at those meetings, just because we do need to have this collective understanding of just what's going on. There's a lot of moving pieces as well that are happening, that are still happening today. So with that, the STL recovers. Miriam Keller here as well is part of that recovery team. And so we have been coordinating in that regard and will continue to do so. The actually Culture Corridor, Dream Boulevard, their storefront at Whittier and Martin Luther King, where Trap Run's gonna be as well. That was during the month and weeks after the tornado. That was a center for recovery as emergency response as well. And for the bill, your commissioner Aaron Williams, he's involved with the Culture Corridor. That same planning firm Lamar Johnson is also working. Well, you heard from him tonight. So there's a number of others with different residents. We want to hear what they're hearing. Different residents have been displaced and are still participating. One of our ambassadors even is out in Maryland Heights, and I was with him on Saturday at at Sumner High School at Antioch Church. They had an event this Saturday, and so a number of the plan ambassadors and the Dream Boulevard Culture Corridor liaisons were there as well. So people are impacted. It has energized them. Hopefully we can meet them where their needs are. Of course, neighborhood planning is not the sole outlet for all recovery efforts. So we do need to definitely coordinate, because people see this, you're with the city, what are you going to do? So we need to be definitely coordinated and aligned, so we can either hopefully help through neighborhood planning or to relay to whom it needs to go to, whether it's other departments or just even the third parties that are also coordinated responses to.
Yeah, absolutely can help. To me, it helps with the vision of seeing what it could be, even planning before already and seeing the different mock-ups and the pop-ups and all that stuff. But we need it now more than ever, because if you walk these blocks now, the devastation, it'll discourage you. So again, I just think it's perfect timing for these pop-ups and these different ways that people can see and envision and talk and share their lived experiences about what they see and what they want to see. So again, I appreciate all the community engagement. Looking forward, I'll get this plug, looking forward to the trap run. Me and Miriam do the trap run every year. So looking forward to the trap run and being there and just continuing to help support and build up the energy around this plan. And thank you.
Thank you too.
Ms. Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. The great presentations, really thorough. I learned a lot about the process. I'm new to the Planning Commission, so it's cool to see how much is is, ongoing and, people have probably heard a lot about and I'm just learning about. So that's fantastic. I agree with Alderman Clark Hubbard's questions about, how tornadoes impact, the tornado impacts the planning process from the community point of view. But I think there's, obviously the community point of view, and then if there will be actual sections of the plans that discuss any changes to the plans because of the tornado's impact, or do you anticipate that a lot of the things in the plans will be the same, still same commercial corridors, green space desires, flooding, environmental resilience, so many of those things go hand in hand, but is that going to be a specific part of each of these kind of turned in drafts?
I think definitely when we look into we recognize definitely the implementation matrix. So right now, for example, if we were looking at any vacancy, of course, we talk to LRA and there are particular channels that you would traditionally go to. With the emergency response, we definitely want to look at the new opportunities that have arisen because of the tornado. So different funding opportunities that we can now align with more than just a blight and redevelopment plan or more than just light tech. There's other things too. So we definitely want to recognize those where they are and even under what circumstance. So part of that would just be in the neighborhood plan, just recognizing it, but definitely on the city side coordinating with, okay, so what does this actually mean when we're talking about this particular block? So there's other parties to coordinate with too, but definitely to look at and understand. I couldn't say that this plan would cover, well, actually, from the point of you're asking about corridors or just some of the other areas, those four typologies specifically in the plan area one does deal with a little bit more that's vacancy and other deals with more that's less vacant. So with the tornado, time will tell how many people unfortunately will just, would they walk away? Will they rebuild? And that leaves us, in a year from now, hopefully we're trying to push forward to encourage them to rebuild, to stay and do all that. And that's not only a neighborhood planning effort, that's, a coordinated effort, but, and I think the typologies do look at what's vacant versus what's not vacant, but still it's a strategy around vacancy partially.
It's very
and build.
interesting. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the implementation piece of the plans, whether or not there were not only suggestions of more green space, more attention to dealing with vacancy, things like that, but actual, assigned roles, whether, there's an organization that is in charge of community gardens, for example, or different organizations to work with for housing development that have kind of agreed to be leaders in that part. Because it's one thing to say we should do this, and another thing for someone to take the ball from here and run with it.
Yeah, and I'd say, and actually I'll look to Leslie Roth as well as we're working together, the implementation matrix, but I'll kind of kick off and say in this process, we have, and actually even today, even earlier in this room, we had number of city departments come together around the different development scenarios to look at what they put together. So part of that, they have on one of the, if you go to the, let's say the nodes they were showing or the Sumner High School one, part of it was an implementation page that talks about a lead organization and other support partners. So it might be LRA doing the LRA lots, but a support partner might be Urban League or a building firm or a third party. In this process, we have intentionally, especially in our working groups, brought together people who are interested in community around doing these things, because you want to bring in people, like I could say, yeah, housing should go there, but there are actually people in the neighborhood or working, including on the neighborhood planning committee, and the culture corridor liaisons who actually work in development in the neighborhood and live there too. So we potentially brought a lot of different people together so they can become implementation partners. They do the plan together and implement together. And I'll also give it to Leslie if you have anything. to add?
Sure. Yeah, just to add on to that a little bit, the implementation partners, we have had a developer roundtable, as Jonathan alluded to understand what the current capacity and interest for development in the neighborhood is. Looking towards the future, these partnerships are going to be really important. As I mentioned, implementation is absolutely the hardest part of putting one of these plans together. However, building capacity now, not only from the developer, lender, and finance community, but also understanding how supporting residents in organizing and building social capacity in the neighborhood to be able to, define, understand, and act on what those development recommendations are will be really important moving forward. All of these planning processes would just be a colossal waste of time if there was not implementation and action afterwards. So after a year of working with community residents and building capacity and, testing all of these ideas and really beginning to prioritize, where we should start, where is there the most need, where can we have the biggest impact? That is going to be as we move towards the draft plan, the focus of those efforts.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I saw so many things discussed in this planning process that I think my neighborhoods, which are further south, further south that you can get in the city, are dealing with a lot of the same issues, and I'm really looking forward to learning from what the plans are in these neighborhoods to help apply them to my neighborhood. So thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it today.
So one of the things I'll pipe in at this moment is, as you've heard these teams working in various clusters of neighborhoods, the extensive community participation in moving and getting input is really key. It's not helicoptering in. The second fact, and Jonathan just mentioned that in this room he hosted today, people participating in city government that helps with implementation. And the punchline I want to make to that is I sit here, I look through that wall, that's where the Affordable Housing Commission's located and its staff is located. Look that way on the second floor, that's where the 80+ people of the St. Louis Development Corporation are housed to help implement and make change in the neighborhoods and have a plan to follow. And over our shoulder this way is CDA. So it's a purposeful, sort of subtle thing, but to help make sure that planning's not isolated, that folks can be communicative with, and the team building helping to be made, and everybody has a responsibility in the future for it.
All right, Commissioner Banton, questions?
I just want to echo what's already been said in terms of the quality of the presentations. Really great job, and it's also been fun to see the different styles of the team members. So appreciate you all joining us tonight. Just a general question, which I've been curious about for a long time, which you may or may not know the answer, but we've been hearing about flooding issues in these North City communities for a long time, and MSD has been doing projects to mitigate those issues for a long time. And it seems to me that at least the perception is that the North communities get these big open detention pits, and the South City neighborhoods, which are more dense and it would be more difficult, there's just not the available land to do that, get the underground infrastructure. But I'm curious on the reasoning for, is it really just a topography issue, a floodplain issue? Is it a sewer infrastructure issue? What is the underlying big picture issues on why there's so much flooding in these areas? Does anyone know that, just out of curiosity? In your research?
Simple one. We have combined storm sewers with, we have combined our sewer discharge from homes and businesses and facilities into the same pipe that water runoff into storm drains and whatnot go all into. And so MSD is under vicious court orders to fix that problem. But you just mentioned the two ways they're being fixed. In South City, they're being fixed by mainly engineering and subsurface change. But in other parts of the city, it's in North City is the identification of where there are places that open space could be used to have more water retained and not directly going into the storm sewers. And that is a truism. That's the difference in how the expenditures are going. My punchline to this is the community engagement, and there's a big effort with some CDA money, things that Tracy has been involved in the past, to turn some of those green spaces into both amenities that help with the flooding and become assets to the neighborhoods themselves.
Yeah,
that's a
I
big deal.
understand all that, Don, but my question is the whole city has a combined sewer system, but it seems to me that these neighborhoods have more flooding than other neighborhoods in the city. And I'm curious if that is just a topography issue, or is that not actually the case? I know all neighborhoods, especially recently, have seen a lot of flash flooding, but it seems to me that I hear more about it in some of these North City areas. And obviously, a couple of the teams here today presented some of the made a point to talk about the MSD and flooding issue. So in your sort of your neighborhood researches, I was just curious if any of that underlying issue has presented itself for the reasoning for that.
And that's a question for the planning teams, right, Jake?
Yes.
And
I'd like to hear their answer and then I'd like to comment.
And if I could actually hit to plan area 3 for number 1, well, actually I'll have a longer answer because this is on all 3 areas, and plan area 3 has this actually thing for the Dickman Park that I would like to go back to because they did a lot with this particular area. But to introduce from Jake's question, think of this as how city development went along 100 years ago, as how you don't do when you cut your lawn is you move things outside of the path of your lawn so you don't run over things. That's how we did housing development. We put everything down. If there was a river, we kind of dried it up or we channeled it. So we put housing down on a grid system. We cleared everything out of the way. And so if there was a creek or even a cave, we still built housing over it. And so even caves, Missouri has a number of caves as well, most number in the United States. So we just built over these items. Some natural areas, like I'll just ask Justin and Dan talk about in plan area 3, are just very low points. So MSD has had a lot of buyouts, in particular like low spots that we have that all of the city just drains more so into. And then I'll give it over to the planning.
I'm going to dive in with my own comment before you go to the planners.
Yeah.
These areas have not been made into amenities. There have been efforts to get them made into amenities, but the economics is driving these different approaches, as I understand it. So the cost of buying up land in South City, or not South City, but South County, any of the areas that had the combined sewer where MSD is doing projects where they're doing the big tubes. The cost of land is too high, so therefore it justifies the big tubes. In North City, the cost of land is relatively low, so they're able to save money by buying few lots and putting these as surface, so what I'm looking for, surface detention. But they are fenced. They are not amenities. They are not something that can be used by the neighborhoods. So they are simply a large fenced vacant lot that fills with water now and then, and the water is a quality that cannot be used. There are other cities who have done projects to make amenities out of their stormwater practices, and that is not happening here, again, due to economics. Jake,
But-
does that answer your question?
But for the time when we intervene, because what Tracy made mention is in North City, you'll find some pretty god-awful, ugly retention areas. And then one of the efforts we've been trying to do is have more natural areas that also retain water, have native plants in them, and are designed as an amenity and not a physical system as much.
Yeah,
And-
I mean, I think Jonathan hit on it and a little bit there. He mentioned that these are low points in the city, so therefore topography issue on why these areas are getting hit harder than others. So that was my main question. I didn't know if that was the case or not, or if it was a sewer infrastructure issue, or maybe it's both. But that was just my main question. Looking forward to digging into each of these as we move further along in the processes. Obviously a lot to get into on each. So appreciate again the time you all have taken today to give us an update. And that's all I have for now.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yeah, Jake, I'll just build on what Jonathan said. What I've always heard is up in North City, there are pockets of low areas, and that's where the water obviously runs through. I don't want to get into too much detail here, but I've heard that many, many times over the years. So if that helps you at all there. I don't really have any questions. I just want to say, great work in all three planning areas. Unique work by each of the three teams. I am extremely impressed by the community engagement. I think, when you get the people in their neighborhoods and you can get them involved, I mean, there is real love for the city from people that have lived here for many, many, many generations. So it's exciting to see all these things being done. I live in Alderwoman Schweitzer's ward, so it'll be kind of interesting to see, as we're going through this, if some of these items can be carried over in future areas and other areas of the city. I mean, they're all great ideas. Why reinvent the wheel if we can reuse some of the great work that everybody's doing now? So great job, great work. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fowler?
Two things. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the stormwater stuff. Just really quickly, I think a lot of it is driven by economics and development. In some areas where, say you have something happening in the central corridor, it's a little bit more feasible for the developer or something like that to put that storm infrastructure underground. And then if you move into an area that hasn't been redeveloped in a long time, obviously storms getting worse, infrastructure is getting worse, you run into issues. If that area is not getting redeveloped by someone that's paying for this stuff, that values the land, they won't put it underground. And if you have cheaper land, you're going to put it above ground. It's simple economics. And also if nothing's happening there, if it's vacant, yes, the storm issues might be there. I'm not saying voices up there or in those areas aren't heard, but it's kind of we can't do anything right now. So sorry, that's my little piece on storm. Other than that, I loved all the presentations. I'm super excited to look at all these. The one comment I do have is just like a capacity thing for the commission. I hope these are spaced out enough that we can dive into all three and give them the attention that they need. I was really happy to see that stormwater was covered before everybody started talking about that. The traffic calming, all of those items, things that are happening by Hickey Park. I could go on. So I'm really excited this. I just hope that we can space these items out, staff, that we can dive deep into them, give them the attention they need. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have. No questions.
Right, Commissioner Hubman?
Thank you very much. Presentations I thought were excellent. Really appreciate. I just don't have a whole lot to add to everything else that's already been said, except not to kick a dead horse on the stormwater retention. Clearly, the response to the treatments it kind of highlights an equity issue, and I would hope that the plans that you're working on hopefully have strategies to overcome or address that in these particular communities. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And the vacancy collaborative is a key part of that also.
Yeah.
Commissioner Garmendia?
Thank you. So I just wanted to, thank you for the update. It's great to see all the neighborhood plans kind of progress update right after one after another. I had the pleasure of serving on the selection committee. And so, knowing that the community engagement strategy was so critical to the deliberation of the teams and selecting these firms, I'm really glad to see that playing out. in a way that people can appreciate in the plans. And I'm really excited also um, for the interviews with the business owners, just because that's some, I'm a housing researcher, as Jessica Payne knows, so that's the part I'm more familiar with. And so getting to hear from business owners as well is something that, and having the neighborhood amenities in these neighborhoods the way that residents deserve, I think is a crucial part of the neighborhood planning process. So I'm excited to read that as well. I'll be following up with the team kind of to get a more of a deeper dive into that. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. I think it's couldn't come too soon for these neighborhoods to have plans informed by community engagement. And I also agree with the sentiment that I hope we don't deep dive into all of these in the same meeting, because we do tend to be having very long meetings. So I hope they get a dedicated meeting time or even a special meeting for us to go through them. So thanks again.
All right, Commissioner Jorgensen.
I was curious, if we have neighborhoods where people are saying there's a lack of parks or access to parks, and we're also seeing that there's an aging population there. Is it realistic for us to build more parks? Can we put in some playgrounds or sports facilities to attract families? Do we have space for that? Do we have money for that?
We have people, so we have the need. So we have to fulfill that. In short, yes, we need to either rethink how we utilize our parks, different spaces and opportunities. Not everything needs to be a big blown park. We need to really reimagine our open space as an opportunity. Right now, for example, one that's not a park but being invested into, that awesome corner. I'm just going to keep bringing it up at Whittier at Martin Luther King, where Invest STL and unfortunately where Harlem Tap Room is the building. They put a Tina Turner mural there, and there's a green space there. There is plans to do something there, not a park, but definitely activation to fulfill needs for people in the different parks, like Plan Area 3, for example. We came in actually to this process wanting to put a pickleball court, basketball, and a skating rink in an area that actually has a lot of flooding issues that we were just talking about. So we're still trying to reimagine what maybe fulfilling some of those needs are, maybe elsewhere or even just adjacent to. We're looking at, yes, the kids need more to do, but where to put it's where they're definitely coming up with a lot of just strategies and answers to.
Okay, great.
So correlation to that is there are some community efforts and efforts led by people connected with the planning agency and with the Vacancy Collaborative to turn some of this open space into parks. The prime example is one called Peace Park. It's up in the adjacency to the North Grand water tower. That is good, and that is a community effort. Getting them institutionalized to be part of the city park is another hurdle. But the efforts of people working on green space, we've created new parks, we've called them that, but they haven't necessarily been incorporated into our park system, but they're there for the community to enjoy.
Thank you. Related to that, it was mentioned that Hickey Park sort of, even if people live nearby it, they feel scared crossing the road. And I really like that idea of trying to build that temporary crosswalk. And I noted that there was mention of people wanting to just make that permanent. Is that something we have to wait on for this planning project to be done? If we wanted to move on it, is that something we could do? What would be the avenues for that?
And I actually could not, and maybe looking at another commissioner on here to answer if you just want to do a crosswalk, what's the proper procedure for that? But I mean, that's something actually we're learning more about how to do some of these simple items. Other items might be more so referenced in the plan, but it needs a lot more investigation. I'll note some things do cost money, so it's looking at who would like to pay for certain items. Other items we might want to take a close look to say, oh, it might be a little bit more than crosswalks that we want to do and we plan a little bit more for. Some of it takes the older person, because that's a lot of their interest too, to do, they might already have something planned, like on Broadway, for example. That's an interest through all the older people because of the speeding and the complaints. So how can we work more together, look at it holistically, where, you know, a ward might stop, there might be camaraderie and doing something together. Depends on what road it is. I know the transportation mobility plan looks at these larger roads. So West Florissant's one that the city applied for a Safe Streets for All grant this summer. And so looking at West Florissant and multiple wards, multiple neighborhoods, and feeding multiple people and purposes, even connecting parks. So we want to look for the different opportunities where they are. If it's just my own street and there's an issue there, what are the opportunities for those versus maybe something that's done by MoDOT or on the city's larger scale radar? So looking at all opportunities to kind of maneuver through those.
I don't know if Commissioner Bradley might have any thoughts on this particular one. If that's like, what would that have to be a board capital project? Is it something else? Or is that something you can answer?
And I want to repeat the question. So if we were just doing, let's say, multiple crosswalks on Broadway just to cross into Hickey, where there are no crosswalks, but there might be a signal there, how could we go about implementing that?
Commissioner Bradley, I think that was a question for you.
It goes through the alderperson. I can answer. And I can.
Sorry, okay.
The alderperson works with the streets department, and the engineers, and then it does, you know, depending on what the crosswalk entails, like if it's just painting, striping, things like that, it might not have to be elevated to a BPS project. But if you're talking about bump outs, things of that nature around it, then it elevates to, Board of Public Service project, but still through the alderperson.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not trying to make any claims of what that money should go to. I'm just
yeah.
curious about the process.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'll know with these neighborhood plans, this is something to elevate what community wants, or kind of sometimes they know something's wrong or they have a need, but they cannot just say it. And so these planning teams just kind of help get it out, put it on the paper. Some things are already happening, so we want to catalyze what's already going on, but other things, you don't need to wait for a plan to do a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So that's really important. We want to build on one of the planning areas that Plan Area 1 showed, was building upon Alumnus Gardens and the investment there. So we don't want to wait, but we want to leverage and catalyze those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That, I just want to add, that's a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just because Jake and I have this experience ourselves firsthand in the West End, even through some of the things that we worked through the West End plan that's been adopted by the city now, which is the efforts that these come from. The same idea of it, there were small wins or tiny steps we could take and go ahead and implement. We did them, and they were in line with them, and we could use them as catalysts to support the plan efforts in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller.
Okay, I could barely hear you. Thank you. I had a couple of questions. I enjoyed the presentations. They all covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate the amount of work you put into it. I did enjoy the comment that the teams might spend some time together. I noticed the planning staff is trying to coordinate that, but there were some things in terms of vacancy and market forces of targeting the successful areas in each of these neighborhoods and some of the least successful areas. So what I'm suggesting is that in the implementation phase, or as we go forward in, I guess, the existing conditions, that we have targeted our most stable and successful areas and made sure that we have strategies to support those areas. I mean, to me, this is the whole critical point, and I think Leslie pointed it out. You know, if it can't implement it and it doesn't help, then why are we doing it? And targeting those successful neighborhoods in North Point, in Kingsway East, in Baden, that are successful blocks, and there's usually 5 or 6 blocks, they're single family, they're the most successful. Are we strengthening those with specific strategies in this process? This is the only time we do this for the city of St. Louis. Those blocks have been successful for 40 years, but not because of our planning process or the refuse department. They've been successful because the neighbors and the people, the homeowners, and continue to invest and have a legacy of doing that. So right now, this is a critical juncture for us that we target in these 3 areas, those successful blocks, and what makes it successful, because what's successful in one area may just be mediocre in another, but we need to build on those. And so that's my key, is that we target those areas statistically through market sales, homeowner, homeowner rates, low vacancy rates, that we target those. And then we review some of our policies or where we are and say, okay, so at the end of the day, what did we do to strengthen those areas? And there are things in the different areas that are detrimental. For instance, the MSD, these sewer containment bills, which in some areas we do have those containment pits, are not conducive. We have streets. North Broadway is not really conducive. Nobody really wants to live next to it. They might live 2 blocks over. They don't even want to send their kids over there. So I just asked that question as we go through the process. And I also agree that we should have more time to review these, because we're only going to do this once. It'll be 40 years before this happens again. So let's just try to take advantage and be intentional about how we're making these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I only had one question. I was just wondering, I should probably know this, but what is the vacancy rate in each of the planning areas?
I'll need to get back to you on getting you that. We could just follow up in actually just an email.
Could each of the teams tell me maybe?
Oh, if you teams have that available offhand.
For plan area 1, it's 33%.
Right. And that's one my comment. So 33% is not indicative. What does that tell you? I mean, it's a vacancy rate as a statistic, but in the neighborhood, there's certain areas of the neighborhood where it's 10%, and there's certain areas where it's 70%.
Sure.
So you don't treat everybody like it's 33%.
Right. And in planning area 2 and 3, what are the vacancy rates there?
Oh, 2's not on, but I would two had to leave the.
Okay.
But so I'll get back to you. But just or Dan, if you have 3, and I
Okay.
believe that's 30 to 40% and plan area 2 and some particular areas. But we will verify that and get back to you.
And then for 3?
Yeah, I'm not going to quote it offhand, partly because
Okay.
partly because I think the nuance, even between the 2 neighborhoods, North Point, for example, has one of the lowest vacancy rates in North City, whereas Baden is more consistent with the 30%. So I don't want to quote for the whole planning area, because the 2 neighborhoods actually are quite different in their vacancy characteristics, for example.
Gotcha. Okay. And I felt like in planning area 2 and 3, you talked quite a bit about kind of the neighborhood attitudes about vacancy and also kind of the strategies to address it. And I don't know if I just missed it in planning area 1, so I was hoping they'd hit the highlights for that.
With the vacancy and the strategy.
Yeah, and how residents felt about it.
Part of that, and actually I would like to go back to Leslie on that one, but part of the development scenarios did take into account the vacancy that's around them. So one of the of the four typologies was more of a was it a resilience node, Leslie and Hallie, that had more of the infill development where there was a lot of vacancy. And those areas also part of the strategy and focusing on these particular areas where they do have different levels of vacancy, they would try to activate in a way that does respond in their context of the vacancy. So one of the areas does look at a node and how to respond to vacancy at a crossroads of two popular intersections. Another one's looking at how to activate and what you should activate around a campus typology in a park. So in the case of Tandy Park and Sumner High School. So
Any final question?
I just want to make sure to address it. A lot of commissioners raised a really important point that each of these plans deserves its own deep consideration. Each planning area will get its own deep consideration. Do not worry. We thought this would be a good format to kind of start to daylight some of the cross-cutting themes and kind of engagement strategies that are part of these processes. I think also we have a lot of kind of weighty plans coming up for adoption: the Sustainability and Climate Plan, Transportation Mobility Plan, these three neighborhood plans, the Project Connect Neighborhood Plan. So what I suggest is maybe if Chair Boaz and Vice Chair Bam, they're open to it, maybe we meet and kind of look at the full workflow or kind of agenda load of these things and make sure we kind of arrive at something that seems appropriate for the commission, especially considering so many of you are volunteering your time, and very appreciative of that.
Sounds like a great plan. Well, thank you again to the planning teams. The work is really impressive, and I really look forward to being able to dive into the information with you.
Jonathan, you're gonna have one more little quick topic you're gonna talk about on the upcoming areas.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you do. One of the things is we've just been having this discussion is, of course, we have 62 square miles of land. 1950s, we had 850,000 people in the population. We're now under 300,000. And it's placemaking is something we have to consider and make sure we do. And one of the things that we talked about the flooding issues in Mother Nature and topography is now key for us to take an opportunity and try to be benefit. But also when we started to talk about the Ville, there was a mention of urban agriculture. And so one of those two things that maybe deal with a creative way for using vacant land are also aspects of the sloop, and it will be aspect of the zoning. But one of the things that reminds me, Miriam, is our invitation to go talk to President Collins at Harris-Stowe State College about their urban farming program.
And don't go back to the presentation to close this out like this. Keep going a bit. So after hearing from these three teams, kind of what's next, and just summarize, as they kind of mentioned that through their presentations. And I'll also throw in with the timing review, that's well heard and noted. We're looking at the new pop-ups coming up this weekend and the following weekends. We'll send that information more out to you, commissioners. We'll be drafting different plan to implementation matrices, more so for plan areas 1 and 2. Plan area 3, and I'm sorry, made it the 3 on the screen. They'll still continue. We did stagger the start dates of these different particular planning areas. And also, I know we just need to think through with plan area 1 too, because 1 was hit more by the tornado. So I know we need to just think about that, especially with our members. You know, they're also volunteer members in plan area 1 too, but we're still moving along. And next slide, please. And the upcoming neighborhood planning areas, next slide. So phase 2 looks at plan areas 4, 5, and 6. And so we have contracts for plan areas 4 and 5, and then we actually initiated that on the back end right now. Plan area 6, we are hopefully going to wrap up contracting in next month. And that's for the Mark Twain Industrial there. But we will have more updates in these particular planning areas. I'll note plan areas 4 and 5 also were hit, pretty devastated by the tornado. So that's an ongoing, just good timing on the neighborhood planning to be involved, but also just a lot of planning and coordinating. Next slide. And with that, we go over to Don Rowe.
Actually, I got one question for you. I don't remember the story between why Wells Goodfellow and the other neighborhoods are combined as a planning area 4. It's just when I look at a map, it seems surprising.
So at the time and currently still, we were looking at different corridors, different commonalities between neighborhoods and their relationships. So, and looking at original planning areas, Natural Bridge seemed to be one item that came up to a lot of people because a lot of the neighborhoods on the north side use Natural Bridge as they have 70 to the north, or they have Natural Bridge to the south as they're bordered. So Natural Bridge is a traditional retail corridor that has been heavily invested in, especially at Kings Highway at Natural Bridge and around Union 2. You have the Walgreens that unfortunately closed, but you have in North City, I don't actually think you have any stronger area where you have a Schnucks grocery store for one, with a number of food joints and services there. So a lot of people there use it. So we didn't want to necessarily break that camaraderie up from what people use and have worked on there. So with Penrose, which is on one side of that little point there, and the other side is Kingsway West. We were trying to look to keep more of the different neighborhoods more together in planning, or at least under the same consultant. So in this case, we have one consultant who is now hearing the different neighborhoods, but they're on the same corridor. So one team is now hearing everything you're talking about from the Schnucks area, the city limits, to down Natural Bridge on the other side. They might, in their philosophy and how they go about it is, yes, they might group the east, west, and mid areas. So they actually have we're going to meet here primarily and kind of focus these pages of the plan on these two particular neighborhoods versus the whole thing. But the whole thing will have some overall frameworks that just works for the overall planning area, but we will dive into the groupings of the neighborhood, so smaller groupings of the neighborhoods as well.
Thanks so much.
sorry.
Great presentation.
No, thank you.
Don?
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm going to actually wrap up a little bit with saying Jonathan is a city planning executive, which is a top level management role in PDA, and is in charge of neighborhood planning. And so as you heard him say where he was last Saturday and where he is tonight with us, he's all over the place. And he's a passionate guy about our neighborhoods. And that's a wonderful thing. We are funded. The neighborhood planning program is funded completely by EcoDevo. With one exception this year, the Mark Twain Industrial Neighborhood will get some CDA funding for that. EcoDevo funding is the special tax that we got instituted for a variety of things, but it's also not an ever increasing volume of money. So it's the talent, and we learned, and I heard some suggestions about interplay between these different consultants to help learn some new skills. That will be something we'll take up because we got to be efficient. Miriam, do you want to make a couple mentions before I go into more of an executive director's report?
Real quick, and Dylan, I know you kind of flashed it up, kind of exciting like. So the zoning upgrade project, we were slated for a public launch of it June 11th, and that would have meant we would be promoting the event kind of right in the wake of the tornado. Just felt that would be completely inappropriate and distracting from the really important communications around that still very emergent situation, which is not, not at all behind us. But we decided to kind of postpone the public launch event for the zoning upgrade, or ZOOP, as it is known, to September 3rd. And that will be a kind of panel event combined with some ways for people to engage with some of the early analysis that the team has been kind of still moving forward with behind the scenes, analyzing kind of what are the challenges in our existing zoning code. There are many, and we want to kind of start the conversation there. What are the challenges, and what are we trying to achieve? What is the direction we need to go with this upgrade? I'll send around in a calendar invite this event to commissioners, but very excited to kind of get this process sort of formally in the public light, and start a process which will include a lot of public engagement. So September 3rd is the date to know. And then next slide, for commissioners' knowledge, but also anybody tuning in, we are still accepting applications for the Resident Advisory Committee for the zoning upgrade process, which will be a similar approach as we had for the strategic land use plan, sort of a structured lottery to make sure we have open application process. Any resident of the city can apply, but a good geographic and kind of socioeconomic representation across the city. Also a little bit leaning into representation from people who have had direct interactions with the zoning code. Maybe they're a builder or part of a neighborhood association that has dealt with it, that kind of thing. So this will remain open through September 12th, and then we'll be forming the committee in mid-September.
Cool. And as Miriam goes and sits down, she doesn't get a chance to sit down very often because she's involved in a lot of things. And currently, one of the new things is in the disaster recovery and looking forward mode. There are now 5 committees that have been created to look in different segments of what we do moving forward. Miriam is the chairman of one of those committees that's looking at how we're changing or should change development processes in both the short term and the long term. They asked me how many hours she could spend a week, and I said 8, and I think they're overstepping on that, but so that. One other thing Miriam had reminded me about is a land use issue that's big nationally and is becoming quite prevalent and poked at here in the city in big ways. There's a number of these data centers downtown that have happened over a decade for concentrated data mangling and using lots of energy, but not many employees. There's a couple that have been percolating around in the city as new developments. And one of the bigger ones is one that would be in the Central Corridor near the Grand Avenue Transit Station. It is there, developers are now stepping into the city's processes to see about getting that approval. We're doing research about data centers, sharing it with various parties. It's all to say that at some point it may be before a city board, in this case, not necessarily the planning commission, but we will, as planning staff, be able to make some recommendations to that board. It's a heads up that we may also bring it to you as just an FYI, both of the whole realm of data centers and one where we're getting intrepidation about there are some places in the urbanized area that are not the most fitting for. So it was a little vague on that, but that's true. The second part I want to make mention is Ingram Gumbel is a key person that recruited just over a year ago to be working in our GIS. He is now out of the office and visiting family in Africa. He'll be back, but on his first part of this foray of being out of the office, he had been invited to, and we sent him to the ESRI, which is the Geographic Information Systems guru of the world, conference in San Diego, which he has gone to. And I'm making a segue to say geographic information stuff in the city is both used every day for data in place, and it's also used in the planning format for helping us guide and make decisions and plan in the future. When we first started, we were pretty humble with Esri. Now we have 70 people across the city trained and having use for Esri license to do geographic information systems. What I'm about ready to tell you is our IT department then has a lot of responsibility with buying the software, maintaining the software, and those type of things, and the servers. And they have staff that is doing that. Ingram was in PDA embodied to be that evangelical and helping use it for planning. He was 50% funded by us, 50% funded by IT. We at this last budget changed that, and it was tough. But now Ingram is 100% funded in the PDA budget. IT still has some additional funding for having people work on those systematic things for GIS, the software, the whole thing. My punchline is Miriam and I were briefing with Ingram before he was going to the Esri conference, and he said the exact things that I was just excited to hear him to say. He had looked at the conference schedule to see where there would be the most productive use of his time in the conference schedule to bring back how geographic information systems can be integral for helping with planning. And my punchline to all that, he'll be back after he takes a little vacation in Africa with all that knowledge. He'll be full-time with PDA, and it's pushing forward with using that tool more for the stuff that we do and looking for the future. A little long-winded about that, but I'm excited about that. Thank you all.
Finishes up the report?
Yep.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moves.
All right, second.
Beautiful.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here.
Very informative.
We will sort of just give you, now that we've closed the mics, there will be a upcoming presentation